Hello, I'm Jonathan Bowman-Perks and welcome back to my favourite time of the week. And as part of the Inspiring Leadership series, I'm very lucky to have a good friend of mine, Mark Pollock. And Mark is the co-founder and the director of Aston Chase, which is a high-end property business and very well respected throughout London and abroad. We met on holiday and Mark does a huge amount of work for various charities, incredibly generous man of his time and his contacts and his friends. But I just want to talk about leadership and things. So Mark, welcome. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And when we were sort of talking just in a nutshell about your sort of your journey from childhood to later on, which we'll go into in more details in the audio session, but how did you begin and how did things start for you with going into the property business?
Little bit by default, really.
Yeah.
I left school with three, what do we call them, O-levels then?
Yeah, O-levels, yeah.
Three O-levels, so I didn't exactly cover myself in glory. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think my parents told me that I was good with people.
Yeah.
And I think something that gave me the opportunity based on performance to earn more money also seemed kind of appealing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I saw an advert in the Evening Standard, opportunities for juniors, a company called Druce & Company, who were a well-respected estate agency business, who had their head office was in Manchester Square, Marylebone.
Yeah.
And I started there as a junior. I remember working in the basement with two old age pensioners. One came in the morning, one came in the afternoon, alongside the Xerox machine.
Yeah.
And that's how I started.
That's amazing. And tell us just in a nutshell about Aston Chase and what it now does.
Well, Aston Chase is I think we would describe ourselves as a boutique residential estate agency operating in central and northwest London. Effectively, we're dealing predominantly at the top end of the market. Full service agency dealing with flat sales, house sales, new homes, rentals and management. And we've actually been established scarily nearly 35 years. This August. I started at the age of 24. And I think it would be reasonable to say we've got a good reputation within the industry and probably recognised as one of the leading operators in the areas in which we cover.
And leading is one of the things that actually is the whole series is about, and leadership. And as we chatted when we met, and since at the charity event you took me to, leadership really means a lot to you, and you've done a huge amount of developing your own people and bringing them on and looking at talent. You talked about aspirational leadership. There's no particular people that were, you read up about in books and stuff like that, or someone you looked to, I want to be like them. But you aspired to become a good leader. Tell us about that journey, and particularly you talked about school.
Yes.
And what gave you that aspiration to be better and to be the best at what you do?
I think as a kind of kid, I experienced some my family experienced some financial difficulties, and I saw the kind of ramifications of that. I had to leave the school that I was at, and I kind of conscious of it being a little bit of a struggle for my mum and dad. And then subsequently, when I went to a school which was actually educationally a very good school, a grammar school, that I was somehow got into it based on religious grounds, albeit I wasn't particularly orthodox. I met people who were from affluent backgrounds, became friends with some of them, went to their homes and saw a world that I didn't really knew existed. And I think that kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities that were out there and proved to be an inspiration for me going forward.
Yeah, no, and it is, particularly, you are, whether you describe it or not, a successful entrepreneur. You've created something, you made something, it's got a great brand. And many of the leaders that I know, I also, we ran out of money. I was at a private school and my mother had to take me out of there into a grammar school. We had so little money, and it was a bit of a shock at first, I was rather teased, and it took a while to get into it. So, but I think that's also been quite a driver for me to better myself and to set standards that are quite high. And as you've been a leader and you've grown your business and things, we were talking before about learning from our mistakes, and often we make business decisions which don't turn out to be right. You had a great story. Do you want to just share that story about getting it wrong and what you learned from it and how you adjusted having got it wrong?
Yeah, you're referring to the story regarding the niche of the market that we were focusing on. Yeah, I mean, in the early days of Aston Chase, we were effectively very much a top end of the market house agent. So we were dealing with very high value houses, predominantly in St John's Wood and Regent's Park and some of those surrounding areas. And they were high value properties, but relatively low volume in terms of the number of transactions. When the market became tougher during an economic downturn, we became really exposed. And at that point, we realized, having survived that period, we realized that we didn't want to be back in that position again in the future. So effectively, we developed our business in such a way that we started rental activity, later a new homes activity. We separated our house sales into house and flat sales and management as well. So we became much more of having a broader spectrum, several income streams, and if one area of the market was perhaps not performing as well as another, we weren't as exposed as we were in the first place. So I think, it's always important to learn by your mistakes.
Very much.
What was very much our strength, because at the time when we were focusing solely on high-end houses, everyone was kind of almost aspirational to what Aston Chase were doing, because they're big fees and very attractive area of the market to be operating in. But similarly, it proved to be our weakness. So we learned from that.
Very important to learn.
Tough experience.
Yeah, and so
I remember trading my 911 Porsche for an Astra.
Really? That was a big check. Yeah, and I think humility is a key thing. When we've made a mistake, we have to admit it, retrench. And what would be, as we just wrap up this part of the session, what would be the sort of leadership tip you'd want to pass on to other people who are aspirational entrepreneurs or starting out their journey or trying to adapt to a market that's going down? Because a lot of people have got some quite tough markets to deal with them. And what would be your top tip on leadership to pass on to them?
Can we pause here for just
a second? No, actually, the one I think you had, that one was about the team. You shared your tip, which was about refreshing your team. I thought that was a good one.
Yes, thank you. You've jogged my memory. In point of fact, one of the things I think we were discussing earlier was that we have a very experienced, mature team, many of whom have been with us for a long time. And that's definitely a strength of the company by virtue of their contacts, their experience and their ability. Because ultimately any business is only as good as the team that you're around you. But similarly, perhaps we failed to shuffle the pack, to refresh that team. And I think it's really important to try to, using the football analogy of Alex Ferguson and Manchester United, when they had a kind of Premiership winning side, they still made transfers and brought in new people who helped to, I would say, keep other people on their toes, and to keep it kind of energetic, vigorous and relevant.
Very relevant, very well. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Great having you on the series of Inspiring Leaders. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.